This is my first video on my channel where we're going to be discussing a variety of geopolitical subjects and other related things. This video in particular is going to be about Botswana demanding more control over De Beers Mining Corporation. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Botswana makes a decent amount of its yearly revenue from diamond sales. It's a very diamond-rich country. I think probably one of the most diamond-rich countries in Africa and probably just the world in general. And so De Beers, which is a Western company, I'm not too sure where it's from. I think it might be British or maybe Canadian, maybe Dutch. I'm not too sure, but I know it's Western. I know it's from somewhere in Europe, maybe America. But essentially, Botswana's demanding more control over it because for the longest time, this company has been just, I could say, not giving back what they should be giving if you look at the profits that they're making yearly. And so now the Botswana government is demanding greater control over the company's finances, which makes sense because they are operating in their country, so they should have a greater say into how they operate, especially considering that diamonds are so crucial to the Botswana economy. Now, the president of Botswana, Duma Boko, he is very adamant in his quest to bring the company under greater Botswanan control. And in fact, the woman who's running this is named, let me pull up her name, Bogolo Kinewendo. And she is the Minister of Mines in Botswana. So I guess she just oversees all the mining and stuff that happens in the country. That's actually unique. I don't think I've ever heard of a country that has a ministry, that has a specific section of their government dedicated to mining, but that might be the case in other countries. I'm not sure on that. But to read an article, it's from Mining MX. It says, Botswana's minister, Bogolo Kinawedo, told the newspaper President Duma Boko remains resolute in his request to increase Botswana's stake in De Beers. This was to ensure Botswana's full control over this strategic national asset and the entire value chain, including marketing, said Kinawendo. Boko said recently that De Beers, which obtains most of its diamonds from Botswana, was not selling enough diamonds. Maybe we should take over and sell them ourselves, said Boko's remarks. Complement efforts by Anglo-American to sell 85% stake in De Beers. Bids for the stake are expected in early August, the newspaper said. So, if this is to be believed, I don't know how true this is, but apparently De Beers gets most of its diamonds from Botswana. And from what I understand, the Botswanan government only has a 15% stake in the company. So it means the other 85% is broken up amongst shareholders and maybe other governments that have some sort of agreement with the company. And so now they're seeking greater control. And this is actually quite interesting because the president of Botswana, he has very close ties to the AES and the Sahel states. And this is kind of surprising because the AES, they're non-democratic. They're not a democratically elected force. All of them took power by force. All of them took power through coups, occurring in different years, but they all took power through coups. And they aren't very democratic. If I'm not mistaken, the current head of Niger dismantled all the political parties in the country earlier this year. It looks like Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso is heading towards that. Now for Mali, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. And Chad doesn't seem to be too democratic either. And I include Chad because Chad is like a almost unofficial member of AES, but they kind of go back and forth with whether they want to be pro-Western or not, or whether they want to be with the AES. But yeah, the president of Botswana, he is democratic though, but he still has close ties with the AES because I think even he sees that the AES are generally doing good by their people. So there's no reason for him to have any quarrel with them. But it seems like what Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger has done is creating a ripple effect across the continent um, more countries are starting to demand that these foreign, typically Western companies are going to have more respect for the nation and give back more to the nation that's allowing them to make money, right? If it wasn't for all these African countries, these Western countries wouldn't have profited so much. Like that French company Orano, which is now going bankrupt because Niger kicked them out. So now they're going bankrupt. They're not making they're not making anywhere close to the amount of money they were making, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because Niger kicked them out. So they're not mining uranium anymore. And so now, if I'm not mistaken, I think that France is now starting to have to dig into their uranium reserves to keep the nation powered. So this information isn't secret. The other African nations can see this. They can see the effects it's having on this Western company, Orano. And so now you're going to have a wave of countries demanding more, from these Western organizations operating within their borders. It's the same thing with Malawi, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that the president of Malawi has demanded that, foreign mining companies operating in Malawi offer the country a bigger share in its profits, because I'm certain they're also getting exploited. So this is good to see. I support this. We need this across the entire continent, and really just globally, because De Beers is not limited to, not De Beers, but you have companies like Barrick Gold. You have companies like Barrick Gold, which is essentially decimating the nature in the Dominican Republic, because they're mining for gold, and a lot of this gold is buried within, forested areas and things, and so it's really destroying the environment. And so, yes, it's time that we get these mining corporations, especially, under control. And this goes for anything, because look at the Congo, right? It's very cobalt rich, and the people there are paying for it. They're suffering because their nation is rich in cobalt, right? And it's not just about, minerals. You also have oil, right? These oil companies are out of control. They basically run the world. I mean, especially here in America, they own America. They have a very outsized influence in American politics. And so it's definitely time that we get these companies under control, because it's not just about the exploitation of the people, it's also about the destruction of nature. And what these companies are basically bringing about is a complete global collapse of the climate. And so we need to get this under control, because this is bad for everyone. No one benefits from this except a few very rich elites. So, but now we must understand that if a nation is going to go down this path, right, of proper decolonization, because that's what this is proper decolonization. These companies basically work as neo-colonialist agencies that rape and pillage the continent, and just globally, really, just globally. So if you're going to go down this path as a nation, you have to start understanding that you're going to be targeted more than you typically would be. Because we can see Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, what is it? He faced 20 assassination attempts. 20 assassination attempts for what? Just trying to improve his country? And we know who's behind this. Anytime you start to really challenge the West, they always throw a tantrum. So it's important to know that this is something that needs to be done, but it's not going to come easily. And you're going to have to be willing to meet the enemy with force wherever it's needed. So you're going to have to start investing into more and more weapons, better weapons, how to build these weapons, how to make these weapons a national project. The AES, I mean, I understand, they have other things to worry about, but because, they have JNIM that they're fighting, the terrorists. I think they're an Al-Qaeda offshoot, but they need to start building a joint weapons research, agency, or just something like that, or just starting up companies that can do this for you. You know, they need to be in production of their own rifles, their own pistols, tanks, bullets, fighter jets, missiles, ships. And I know eventually, well, maybe not ships, because now look on the map, the entire AES is landlocked. But maybe if they expand in the future, where they now touch the coast, then yes, ships too. And I know that Russia is helping build some nuclear reactors in the AES, so that's good. I think they already built, or they're at least close to finishing, in Burkina Faso, and I think Mali too. And I think they're finalizing their plans in Niger to build one. And so, as they continue to develop their nuclear facilities, there's a next logical step you have to take, which is to becoming a nuclear armed state. To become a nuclear armed state so you can effectively deter any sort of attacks, because in this world, you have to show force to the enemy, that you can hurt them in a manner which is equal or even greater than what they can do to you. And the nations with nukes have the greatest amount of say on the world stage. So you want your nation to be there. You want your nation to be amongst them, amongst, the very few that can actually speak up for themselves and say, you're not going to do that to us, or we demand this. That's what you want. And the way to get that is to be economically strong, to control your media, and to have a strong military. And that's what we need to work towards on the African continent. If it's not clear by now, I support Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism will liberate black people. So, yes, this is my first video on this channel. Sorry for the cuts. Sorry for me constantly clearing my throat. The videos will improve in quality eventually. So, thank you for watching.